Boom! How's it going? How's it going? Hey, welcome to M5 Property Addicts channel, where we talk anything and everything around property, real estate. And if this is your first time, welcome aboard. And if it is your third, fifth, 100th time, it's good to having you around. And if this is your thing and you enjoy property and you enjoy these topics that we're talking about, I would like you now to just go and hit the subscribe button so that whenever we are broadcasting anything, you are the first one to hear or see it. So smash that button there and subscribe. Hey, my name is TJ Taurai Jack, and I'm an active property investor in the business, M5 Property Addicts. And I'm also a teacher, and I like to see myself as a real teacher. I teach what I practice, obviously within the business that I do. I'm doing investments, and in my business, M5 Property Varsity, that's where I teach others who are wanting also to be successful like me in the property game. If I'm not doing that, I write books, and my latest books that I wrote, so I'm an author. It is called From Bad Debt to Property Mogul in 2 years. This is the book that I recently wrote. It is available. You can pick it up on our website, and I'll be able to ship that to you. Right, like it is a Saturday, and on Saturdays we don't just talk about property. We talk about, or should I say, we zoom in and focus on a particular book. And as you all know, I always talk about, you need to sort out this guy here, the head. And the only way you can sort out the head is by obviously reading books. One of the easiest way to learn, because someone out there has hit success. In their success, they've put it down, or they've observed something and they've written it all down. And that's what now we get as books. And we can literally zoom in into all these books and we can learn from it. Okay, good stuff. Well, the big picture of that is that not only do we have these books to talk about, but we can share and learn from it. So if you've got any comments around a particular book, right, that I might have shared, every Saturday I come out to you and I share a particular book. Last week, Saturday, we shared a different book, and this week we'll be sharing another book. Go through it, and if you read it, or if you've never read it and you've gone to read it, let me know what is your comments and what was your learning. And obviously, the aim is not for us to finish off everything that is in that book, but I would like to see what you have learned from the book. Well, today I am going to talk to you about a book actually that my employer gave me, right, back in the days. I think it is almost around about 2014, 13, somewhere there, if I'm not mistaken. It has to be somewhere there. And the first copy of it, I got it from my employer. So they invited this guy in. He was some kind of a motivational speaker, and it was at a year end. Things happen at a year end, right? And it was at a year end, they brought in this guy to be a motivational speaker. And he brought along books. And everyone kind of like got a copy, right? At that time, I wasn't serious about anything at all. I was just an employee. And as an employee, you get freebies, you bring them home and they sit on the shelves. But what happened a little bit later, I think maybe about 3 or 4 years on, I was invited onto a seminar and I went through, and boom, I saw the same guy again. But I want to go back to, I actually read the book, but I didn't finish it, right? So I read the book, and this book that I'm talking about today, it is called The Mind Power 2. The book Mind Power. So some of you have seen this one. The author of this book is called John Kehoe. But this was not my first book to read about from John Kehoe. I'd actually read another book, but it kind of like went through my head, right, over my head. And I didn't really understand it. But what is this book all about? If you're in South Africa, you probably know that there's a guy that's called Robin Banks, who's also did a forward on this particular book. And he is kind of like the cornerstone of mind power in South Africa. He normally holds a whole lot of seminars in the different towns online and things like that. And I'll encourage you that, if you're around, or if you get an opportunity, go through onto his website and you can definitely, get to see what he's talking about. But I want to talk about today my learnings from this book, and over and above that, what was the other things that I started doing, right, that I started implementing from this book. But by the way, I also want to put a disclaimer that I just didn't read the book. But I also started doing other things, and that's what I'm going to talk about. Now, I want to speak about the 5 things. I always speak about the 5 things, and the 5 things that I learned from this book. And I'm going to start from the top, and I say, I realized, so this book here talks about the mind. That's what it's talking about, right? And for a lot of us, or should I say, let me speak for myself. I didn't know what I didn't know about the mind. I just thought that, we're human beings and we carry on life like we all do, but, there's more to your mind, right? So out of the 5 things that I learned, the first thing that I really learned was that I realized that managing your brain is as good as taking a bath. You might be saying to yourself, hey, TJ, what are you talking about? Because what happens in real life is that in our brains, there's lots of clutter. There's lots of things that happen. In life, we see different things. We're exposed to some stuff that we don't want. And obviously, our mind starts processing that. But like it is, we go out there and we take a bath, or like it is, we eat and we clean our teeth, and we come home, we wash, we take a bath. Exactly in the same format, I realized that, or should I say, this book taught me that I need to learn how to manage my brain like it is if it is taking a bath. There are certain things that I need to take out when those things have come in. Some of them, they might be caused by other people. Some of them I might be caused by myself. It doesn't really matter. But this book here taught me how to take a bath, or should I say, how to give my brains a bath. That's the first thing that I learned. The second thing that I learned is that I actually needed time to actually dedicate to learn and how to understand my mind and me, right? So I'm going to pause there, and then you're like, let's process that a little bit. I actually started learning how best to understand or to learn my brains, how my brains function, right? Because my brains and me, yes, we are all one person, but my brains kind of like have their own thoughts whilst I am wanting to do something else. And I realized that even though in physical format, we are not 2 separate beings, but my brains can actually think about something else whilst I'm wanting to do something else. I know that's deep. Yeah. But that's the reality that I figured out. This book taught me that. And I started now trying to think, how do I make my brains, or should I say, how do I make my thoughts think the thoughts that I want it to think, right? Can you control that? Yes, you can. And this is what this book actually taught me to do. The third thing that I learned was that I realized that in this book, actually, there are different techniques which one can start utilizing in terms of managing your thoughts. So there are different techniques. And I'm just going to jump on into some of these techniques that I now use, right? So for instance, my favorite, and which was the easy one to gravitate, and there's plenty of them, by the way. My favorite one is affirmations, right? And if you don't know what affirmations is, I'm just going to quickly read it out to you here. And it quickly says to us, affirmations are simple statements repeated to yourself silently or aloud, whatever feels most comfortable and practical to you at the time. From an affirmation perspective, what you're doing there is you're affirming what you're wanting to be. You are affirming what you're wanting to be, right? So you might want to be a famous person, so you affirm yourself. I am a famous person, and it doesn't say how many times here. It doesn't say where. It doesn't say you should be affirming yourself silently or loudly. It doesn't make it like, it doesn't share any of those details. It just says that you can affirm yourself. So which means that obviously the more you're going to affirm yourself, the more your brain is going to start realizing that, oh, the thoughts are going to become real. Okay, so that's the other thing. The other technique that I also want to talk about is meditation. That's something else that I also started doing. And there's something that's also called acknowledgements, acknowledging thyself, right? And the subconscious mind, right? And this is not a technique, but it's talking about your subconscious mind. So who knows? Like, I didn't know that there's a subconscious mind. I was just living my life, right? But these are some of the techniques that you can start utilizing. I gave you 2, and those 2 are like the simplest ones, but there's a whole lot that you can actually utilize. So I became aware of these things, and I started to actually start applying them. Number 4, I started now seeing some of these techniques, and of course, whilst I was reading the book, I would see some of these techniques, and I'm like, oh, like for instance, meditation, right? So meditation is one of the techniques that you can utilize. And whilst I was reading that, because of my preconceived ideas, I had seen people who do meditation. I had. But it is only the rich people that I had seen doing meditation. So for me, I was thinking, this is not for me. And also, I think the other people that I'd been exposed to was back in the days when I used to like watching Kung Fu. They would show a little bit guys, monks, guys from Asia and things like that were doing meditation. That was my only exposure of what meditation was all about, So if you look at it from my perspective, I just didn't know, right? And though I started reading the book and I was now getting the education of the techniques that are in there, my preconceived ideas was now pushing me into a space of, this is not for you, right? But I had to have an open mind for me to learn. If your cup is full, there is no way you can learn. So I read this book the first time round, and I think on my 3rd attempt of reading this book, that's when some of those things started sinking. And I was privileged that I think it was Robin's 40th birthday, if I'm not mistaken, or should I say John Kehoe, he came here on his kind of like the final tour, and I was there as well with around about, I think it was maybe about 600 people, and it was just a whole weekend. But he did another course and started giving out the techniques and all of those things for people to learn or relearn again. And I realized, I started seeing some of my friends who are property investors were there. And I'm like, what are you doing here? And they're like, yeah, what are you doing here? And I realized that actually successful people, they chase to harness their brains or their thoughts, because our thoughts can actually make us successful or not successful, right? Okay, the 5th thing that I then learned is that I realized that the mind is so powerful. It is actually said that the most intelligent people are said to be using not more than 10% of their brains. And by the way, I am not, one of the intelligent people. So what am I using? Like 1% maybe? 0.1%? I don't know. Who knows, right? But the fact of the matter is that when I looked at that, I said to myself, if the mind is so powerful, how come we don't utilize it? So I got the awareness in my head, and I started thinking the thoughts that I want my thoughts to think of, right? I started feeding my thoughts what I am looking for. And in all these different techniques, I started now learning more and more, and I started implementing some of those things, right? So I can speak on about this. I'm passionate about this as well. And yeah, John Kehoe is a legend. I mean, he started this thing in the 70s, and he hasn't stopped. Humble guy, if you meet him. And yeah, salute to him, and salute to Robin Banks. Obviously, he is pushing the brand. and pushing not only the brand, but obviously pushing the learnings. And I'm just hoping that a whole lot of people can tune in and listen to that. Now, you can obviously get this book. I'm going to put in a link on here somewhere at the bottom of the video, and you can get this book. Preferably, I think, obviously, on Robin Banks' website, they are going to have books there. And I've seen it in the local shops as well, so you can potentially get it in the local shops. Right. I am going to stop here, but before I stop here, in terms of my learnings, remember, I always give you 5 things that I learned. But out of my 5 top things that I learned, what were the 3 things that I implemented? What were the 3 things that I implemented? So number 1 of the things that I started implementing, I started working on my thoughts and my headspace. I started working on my thoughts and my headspace. Like, for instance, I'm going to give you an example. I used to be one of those people, I'm a very observant person. So because of that, by nature, I would look at things and I would process them, like circumcising a mosquito. I kind of like do that, And I realized that I'm spending quite a lot. I'm thinking about different scenarios. What if? And a whole lot of movie is happening right here in my head. And what's happening is just simple. The person is just walking down the street, but I am thinking maybe the car is going to bump them, maybe this is going to happen, maybe a whole lot of things, right? But I started now working on my thoughts. One of the things, one of the techniques that has helped me is that when you are thinking about those things and you realize that you are thinking about it, so it's a technique again, to realize that you're thinking, you're going into the rabbit hole, right? To cut that thinking. So you cut the thinking, but how do you cut the thinking? Well, for me, I literally tell myself, Taurai, stop it. Or I put something in the positive instead of thinking of the negative, So that's one thing that I learned. And obviously now I do not let my mind run wild. What if we buy this building and the building is going to burn? Oh no, what if there's kids there? The kids are going to die in there. Oh no, what if there's going to be plumbing issues and we cannot get to the plumber? So I'm thinking about all these negative, but I can literally cut it and say, Taurai, stop it. So that's what works for me in that technique. So I'm like, Taurai, stop it. And I stop it and I replace the same thoughts with the positive thoughts. What are the positive thoughts? It's going to be a beautiful property. We're not going to have issues on this property. We're going to paint it. It's going to look nice. We're going to have good tenants that are going to stay there. Automatically, how you feel is different, obviously, right? Automatically, now your thoughts are going to now thinking about how best can you do it, right? So that was the first thing that I implemented. The second thing that I implemented, I knew that I couldn't do it alone. I knew that I couldn't do it alone because a lot of the things that were being said in here were foreign to me, right? So I started reading more. Out of the reading more, I started actually doing the baby steps of the technique, things that I understood, techniques that I understood. Like, for instance, I looked at myself and I said, what are the techniques that would work for me? I'm an over-paralysis person. I used to be, not anymore. I used to be an over-paralysis person, but right now, I am not. If I think of something, I've got a 3-way process of thinking of it. Will it work? If it doesn't work, how will I make it work? Simple. Doop, doop, doop. Gone, right? Let's make it work. If we do make it work, we've got money in the bank, right? If it's not going to work and I don't know how to make it work, find someone who can help you to make it work. It's a 3-way process. That works for me, right? Again, those techniques I found them there. The third one that I also learned was that I started implementing is and I think this is still one of my hindrance now, but I've gotten over it a little bit from when I started. But because I tend to be a busier person and I forget. That's an excuse, isn't it, that I'm pushing out there. But the reality of it, did you see? I just copied my thoughts and I corrected it. In my mind, I went, stop it, Taurai, okay? But anyway, so let me come back to it. The thing that I'm going to tell you, the third thing that I started implementing is that I started setting time to work on my thoughts, and that was intentional. So I started setting time aside. So do I do it in the morning? Do I do it in the afternoon? Do I do it in the evening? Do I do it once a day? Like, so for instance, if I'm doing affirmations, how many times do I need to do affirmations? When do I do it? How do I make sure that I am going to do them? So for instance, I utilize my phone together with Google Calendars and Google Reminders. So I've got maybe about 5 affirmations that I've got for myself. And those 5 affirmations, if you've hung out with me at all, you'll realize that my phone will pop up. And when it pops up, sometimes it's all my affirmations coming up. All of those affirmations, they go out at different hours of the day. And I get to do all my affirmations without even thinking. Some of them, I now do them without even reading. So the phone now is just now a reminder. It just comes up, boop, right? So for instance, I find deals very easily, right? It's an affirmation that I've been having for the last 3 years, you know, when I started doing my affirmation. So I get affirmations that I've got, and I get deals very easily. I do, right? Because it's an affirmation that I've been carrying on for the last couple of years, right? But each year or from time to time, like for instance, recently, I also learned a cool affirmation from someone that I look up to. And I realized it was a problem to me of something that they affirm. So they affirmed the positive, and it was a problem to me. And I was like, so maybe I need to use that affirmation as well. So I started utilizing that affirmation. It's about 2 weeks old right now. And obviously, I know that affirmations work, so it's going to work for me. So those are the 3 things that I started implementing. Now I want to go into the next thing and say, well, have they worked at all? What has been the results? Have they worked at all? And what has been the results? Well, the results is that I now understand me. I now know how to manage me, right? You might be saying, TJ, well, back in the days that used to be problematic because I just used to do life like I'm just doing life, right? There was no intention into it. But because now I understand me, I know me, and because I know me, I am able to manage me better. So for instance, I'll give you an example, what we were talking about recently, just now, which is the fact that I used to do over paralysis, right? I used to circumcise the mosquito. I used to overanalyze something, right? I didn't know that about me. And I came to be aware of it. And I started now implementing techniques that helps me to move from that paralysis to the positive of what I want to do so that I can get to what I'm getting to faster, right? And again, it's a thinking process. I had to think. I had to go through and say, well, this is my behavior in terms of doing and thinking. And I went into the book. I saw what the book can give me. I took one technique and I started implementing it. And the results have been awesome because now I don't do that anymore, right? The other thing, or should I say the other results that have now started kicking in is that I now know my thoughts, right? I now know my thoughts, and I know the fact that my thoughts are not me, right? And you could be saying to yourself, TJ, yes, your thoughts are not you. I remember when I was in class one day and Robin Banks would say, your thoughts are not you. And I'm like, dude, please, you know? And for me at a point, I struggled to get Robin. I struggled to get him. Like he is like over energetic. So he would go over the whelm for me, you know, like really overwhelm me, you know, like I couldn't get him. And until I actually started going through into the sessions, and I'll be like, yeah, today I am going to meet Robin. And, you know, he's super energetic. And how can I tune in, you know, into what he is teaching? Because remember, if your cup is what? Is full, you're not going to get what? That's it, right? So something else that I also started gaining as a result is that the brain is like a muscle. I realized that the brain is like a muscle, right? And that also goes with thoughts. You know, it's a muscle. The more you're going to feed it with the right thoughts that you're looking for, then whatever you focus on is going to grow, right? And that's what it is. There is no any other science around it. The thoughts, or should I say, everything else that you're potentially be needing to do or to achieve for yourself, if you just learn how to harness your mind, and if you're just able to harness this here, the thoughts that you're thinking around that, then it is done. Like it is done. Obviously, it's not done like today. Obviously, you need to work on it until obviously it comes through. One of the other techniques that I used to, I still do it up to now, is a technique called visualization. And visualization for me, again, it is in the book. For me, it's been awesome because sometimes I get extremely busy, like super busy, right? That I can't even see the forest from the woods, like what's happening here? But visualizations, I actually sit, like I do it twice in a day, and in the mornings I do it, in the evenings I do it, and I sit there, I close my eyes, and I feed my thoughts of what I want to see. I want to see my kids happy. I want to see myself in a cool house. I want to see myself traveling. Where am I traveling to? Oh, I'm going to India. So I'm seeing myself surrounded with the Indian folks all over the shore. The ladies have got green eyes and all of those nice things that I see. I'm going to Egypt. So I'm seeing the pyramids. I'm walking in them. And I can feel it. I can feel the sand on me. And I can feel it. The sun is burning me and I can feel it. I am there. I'm enjoying it. I am talking to my son. I know how he's going to respond. I'm talking to my daughter. I know what she's going to respond. And me and my wife, she's having them cocktails that she enjoys to do. I see it. It's visualizing. That's what it is. I'm going to a certain place whilst I'm here. But guess what? Some of those visualizations have come to pass. They have, you know? And these are some of the techniques that I've utilized and some of the results that I've gotten through. Would I recommend for you to get this book? Dead yes, right? Like that's a super no-brainer, dead yes. I want you to get this book. If you are serious about your growth, you need to read this book. And if you have read the book, let me know what you have read, what you have learned, right? Let me know what you have learned. And let me know what is your favorite techniques as well that you're using, and what results have you managed to get, you know? I'm of the view that everyone needs to get this book. But there's so many techniques that you can apply, and obviously some of the techniques, they are not easy for everyone, but you need to find what works for you. So for me, those two so far, and obviously I've got others that I utilize for different things. Everything has been working for me, right? The ones that I utilize. Once I get to start utilizing one and the machine is moving like oil, then I start learning another one. So this book here, I've had it, so many writings in here, and I've written so many notes about it on the things that I'm achieving, and over and above that, the things that I'm wanting, some of the other techniques that I want to do as well. And all of that is to help me to grow. So I urge you to go and grab that book and read it, and let me know what is your feedback. And like it is, every Saturday we come out and we talk about a book, and this is the book that I thought let's talk about today. And it's been a great book to me. I still read it from time to time. Until we meet again next time, God bless and keep growing. It is I, TJ, Taurai Jack, signing out.